Welcome back to Herpetological Highlights. This is episode 242. I am Ben Marshall, and co-hosting, as always, is Tom Major. And we have, well, I think possibly one of our favourite types of episode, or certainly usually we find papers that we find very engaging on this topic, and that is snakes doing snake stuff and people spying on snakes to learn all their secrets that you otherwise would know nothing about.
Yeah, for sure. And it really is a case of spying on snakes. And I think, like the effort that has to be put into learning about how snakes behave is crazy. Like, we talk about radio telemetry a lot of the time, where you are sort of catching up with the snake. Now and again, you go and see it. Hey, what are you doing? And then you get like a momentary snapshot of like, oh, I've tracked the snake. I've followed the beeps. It's there. It's doing this. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to take a GPS location. And maybe you'll do like a few of them in a day or whatever. Still don't really have the technology to get GPS of snakes sort of reliably. So we don't have the luxury of like really high fidelity data tracking sets. And what these authors wanted to do was look at like the actual behavior of snakes. And so to do that, they were setting up essentially snake CCTV. And we've kind of covered some of these snake CCTV papers in the past. And the lead author of this study, Xavier Glaudas, is kind of the guy when it comes to like having the patience to actually like stick CCTV cameras on snakes and watch all the footage and
we're talking
try and discern some stuff from it.
A lot of footage too. We should probably give the full title on the paper in a second, but we are talking about 3,000 hours of video footage.
Yeah, and
which is
I can only hope
a third of a year.
Fast motion. A third of a year. Oh my god, they must have
25 days.
They must have had it sped up. When I was doing volunteering in Thailand, Kurt used to try and make me watch videos of Pitvipers doing nothing, and it was literally so painful. I would always try and find any excuse to do something else. I was just like, please, man. It's just, I do not have the attention span for it. And it's amazing, this data set, and it's great what they've managed to get out of it. So we'll introduce the paper. This is To Be Cryptic or Not to Be, Variation in Detectability by Prey Explains the Diet of an Ambush Predator, published in Oikos, and it is by Glaudas, De Souza, Schunck, Banci, Rojas, Hingst, and Martins, published in 2025. So we're talking about the Atlantic forest of Brazil. So really cool sort of biotope, proper nice wet forest with lots and lots of cool critters inside it. And we're talking about two really cool, well-camouflaged snake species that both employ these sit-and-wait hunting strategies. So they're patient creatures.
Mm-hmm.
They are two pitvipers, Bothrops jararaca, Bothrops jararacusu. Their common names are actually the same as their scientific species epithets. So you've got the jararaca and the jararacusu, which, as you can tell, I'm not familiar with saying. They are strange words to my mouth, but that's what they're called. Presumably those names grew up organically in a local language. I don't know for sure, but they strike me as maybe they did, because those common names, they're not particularly English sounding, but there they are. I've never really had cause to say them, hence why I had to Google how to say them. But yeah, these Bothrops are generally quite large pitvipers and usually very well camouflaged. They have these kind of leafy style patterns on them, blotches of brown, odd highlights of white. They very much look like leaf litter, don't they?
Yes. I mean, it's such a classic viper archetype, I think, this leaf litter patterned. You've got plenty of vipers across Asia that do similar sort of things. You've got plenty of vipers across sort of South America, like these guys. It's a system that works.
It does. You sit in a place, you hide from view, and you wait. And eventually, you'd be very patient, much like the authors of this study.
You do have to embodying the viper to study the viper.
That's actually pretty kind of beautiful. And yes, they just wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And if you were to watch the video of them waiting, what you would see is sort of an animal waiting. But unlike when I wait, I don't know about you, I'm a big time fidgeter. I can't really wait completely stock still. These snakes wait, and they will only like minorly adjust. And we're talking like not necessarily days and days. I think most of them tend to have sort of a sleepy hollow that they go into during the day, and then they come back out and ambush at night. But
right.
They select places where animals have passed by, they do that via scent. So they sniff around with their tongues.
Well,
they find a place where animals are passing and they sit.
Yeah, and we've covered this in the podcast previously, somewhere with a good thermal gradient to help them differentiate warm-blooded body temperature from background and potentially help with depth perception stuff, right? Like there was a whole...
Absolutely, yeah.
There's a whole system going on. This isn't just them randomly finding a spot, randomly finding a little route that mammals are going along. It's a whole tried and tested, probably learnt and refined hunting strategy.
100%. Yeah. And so these authors, I mean, these snakes are hard to find, right? So there weren't a massive amount of snakes that were actually included in this study. They managed to capture
6
in total. They radio tracked them via implanted radio transmitters. They were all over a meter snout to vent length. I think they had, 5 adult Zararakusu and 1 Zararaka. And they were tracking them, and they only really used the radio telemetry in this study to locate the snake so they could then set up a CCTV camera on them and record what they did. And 4 of these snakes were released where they were found, but 2 of the Zararakusus were actually translocated from elsewhere because they were found in neighboring areas approximately 4 kilometers away, near human habitation. The people who lived there were not keen on having these really hard to spot venomous snakes so close to their houses. So they said, excuse me, please, can you put these in the woods? And they did. And apparently these 2 snakes sort of had the initial period of like, where the hell am I? What's happened to me? The aliens put me here. But they did eventually settle down. And once they'd settled down, they were like, well, let's get back to it. We'll start ambushing. And from that point on, the authors thought,
And that's also where the data collection for the ambushing started. So the stuff, while they were trying to find their feet again, removing that's, you're going to discount that.
And so, what they were looking at was when these snakes are sitting in ambush, what kinds of animals are encountering them? And when they are encountering different animals, what do they do?
Because there's this fundamental sort of difference between what are these snakes coming across in the wild and what you necessarily get from dietary studies. Because that's usually the shortcut, right, to work out what snakes need to survive, what are they eating, is you look at what stomach contents they have had and go that route. But that completely misses the sort of dynamic ecological side of things of either failed captures or picking and choosing which prey they're going for.
Exactly. And so they basically they filmed the snakes. They filmed like an area around the snakes with their CCTV cameras, both during the day and at night. And they classified any animals that sort of entered into this 2-meter buffer around the snakes, either as prey. So the prey is obviously things they could eat. So that would be like small marsupials, rodents, amphibians, except for buffonid toads that are very toxic and snakes know not to eat them, it would seem.
And big.
And they can be big. But these snakes are quite big. Like, I reckon size-wise, they could probably tackle it. But they know not to. Also, birds, most the sort of smaller sized birds, most birds, I think, really, and all non-Bothrops snakes. Apparently, they excluded 1 snake that was too large to be considered prey. They don't go into detail about that. What would that have been? Massive snake? Maybe a bushmaster?
Bushmaster, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it could have just been another big... Oh, no, because it's a non-Bothrops snake.
Must have been bushmaster, I would have thought. I can't think of anything else. Maybe could have been a boa.
Big old boa, yeah.
Big old boa. Quite likely. They wouldn't eat a massive boa. That'd be silly. And so all these things are considered prey. And then you've got predators, which dogs and cats, essentially. Anything Canidae, Felidae. And then ambiguous ones, which they're not really sure because there's not much information on how these animals interact. They're like not massively massive, but they're not conceivably, they're sort of ambiguous. So that's things like...
Yeah, the ambiguous is the word they're using. So we're talking about like otters, mesopredator sort of guys that you could imagine could cause quite a lot of trouble for a snake, but also potentially lack the motivation to.
Yeah, also like marsupials, larger marsupials like opossums and armadillos. Armadillo is a hilarious animal, so noisy in the forest that, like, And also some birds were considered ambiguous, like the green ibis, which is just some absolutely hench bird that's like really bright green. I don't know. Well, it's sort of a metallic-y green, isn't it, I think?
Mm-hmm.
But they're just like probably not going to eat that because it's too big, and the ibis isn't going to like be worried to eat the snake. So sort of an ambiguous one.
No.
And then they had neighbors, which are animals not considered predator or prey, like toads, tinamous, packers. And what the hell is a packer? Do you know?
They're like sort of chubby rodent guys, aren't they?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, sort of like capybara adjacent.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, they're quite cool. What the hell? That looks like... I've seen one in a zoo, actually. It's like a massive... They look hilarious. It's like a massive... They look like they should be extinct already, don't you think? Like...
Well, don't let them hear you say that. What an insult.
You know that face, though? They've got like a really broad head.
They do. They
like
have that
ancient...
sort of... Yeah. Yeah.
So, friend of the alpaca, just pure packer. Tinamu is like a... Is that like a fruit-eating big thing?
Tinamu, I think, is another rodent-y guy.
No, it's a bird. It's a bird.
Oh, is it?
It's a jazzy bird. It's a jazzy bird.
Oh my gosh, we're learning we're learning so much.
Like a guinea fowl on steroids with a little hat.
I love that description.
And also there's a massive turtle called a hydromedusa that was probably just like irrelevant to the snake. So those were all like neighbors. And so we got into a lot of detail there just to basically say that they were either prey, predator, ambiguous, or just like nothing.
I think it paints a wonderful picture of the diversity of creatures that these snakes are having to deal with in their natural habitat. I
yeah, there's a lot of animals, right?
Yeah.
It's a forest. It's actually got a lot of animals. Not that you'll see them when you go there, but they are about. And so all of this monitoring, and they were most interested really in the kind of relationship between birds and snakes and mammals and snakes. And so if you look at how often...
It was kind of driven by the fact that they didn't have a huge number of observations for amphibians and reptile prey compared to the other two. So it was more like, all right, we're going to focus on these because these are clearly what they're encountering most often and therefore probably the most important as well.
And I think one of the most striking things you notice when you look at these encounters, if we just think about the encounters they were having, is that they essentially encountered... The birds were the thing they most commonly encountered. They tended to encounter birds in the day, regardless of the weather. This is like mainly because birds are generally quite strictly diurnal. Are there any? You mean like nocturnal?
Owls and nightjars?
Okay.
There are some nocturnal birds. They have been known to.
Yeah, thanks for that, mate. Oh my god. Yeah, okay.
See, you were thinking about tinamous. Yeah. That's all it was. Like, that thing couldn't possibly survive at night.
No. So they were mostly encountering birds during the day, but there were the occasional bird at night. On the flip side of that, they very rarely encountered mammals during the day. They almost always encountered mammals during the night.
Right.
So you've got this kind of, in the day, they're encountering birds. In the night, they're encountering mammals. And they're very rarely encountering reptiles or amphibians. Those things just like aren't as mobile probably, and they're just not bumping into the snakes very frequently. So as you said, this led to this focus on the relationships they had with birds and mammals.
Or where the snakes are choosing to set up ambush sites are geared towards mammals and birds, and those are different to where reptiles and amphibians would be traveling through the forest or living.
That's true. That's probably true as well. We don't know, but definitely could be the case. And so they were interested in, should we talk about them detecting, the animals detecting the snakes?
Yes.
Because I think that to me is like the massive thing that happened in this study.
Right, and that's sort of what the title's getting at too, is like in their intro, they make this point that a lot of the research on crypsis is focused on the prey side of things. How do I hide from predators? How do I stop myself from getting eaten? And crypsis in the actual predators themselves is less studied by comparison. And that's really the crux here is, okay, you've got this very aggressively cryptic pattern on this snake and a very cryptic hunting, a hunting method that relies on it really heavily. How effective is it? How effective is it? And is it differentially effective depending on what prey you're going after? I think that's, yeah. the killer finding here, right?
Yeah, so it's pretty much if a bird came across the snake, 90% of the time the bird would notice the snake, 89.2% of the time. Whereas for mammals, it was only 5.3% of the time. So if you're a bird, you've got basically a 90% chance of seeing the snake. If you're a mammal, a 5% chance.
Right, when you're around 60 centimeters from the snake. 60 centimeters is the mean of all their sort of observations. And critically, 60 centimeters is about 20 centimeters further than the longest strike that they observed from these snakes.
Okay, right.
So the bird is spotting the snake. 90% of the birds are spotting the snake, or they have a 90% chance of spotting the snake when they are outside of strike distance. Critically important. You see them before they can get you.
And this kind of ability of the birds to see the snakes, but not the mammals to see the snakes, is reflected in the diet. Bothrops in this study fed almost exclusively on mammals. It was like 96.3% of the diet was mammals, despite the fact that birds represented the majority of animals which they actually encountered.
Yeah.
So essentially the mammals, they just got no chance. They don't see the snake, they get eaten by the snake.
Right. The mammals, they're getting closer before they're aware of anything. And they did observe some strikes. Some of them none of the birds were actually struck at. So the birds know what's going on. They're staying out of that range. For the mammals, I think, 10 strikes they recorded, 50% hit rate.
Right.
So, I mean, you're still...
Not terrible.
If you are a little mammal, 50-50 chances. I mean, it's not great, but it could be a heck of a lot worse.
Yeah, it's pretty stressful to know that you've only got, you can't even see they're there. At any given moment, some unseen threat is just going to 50% take you out. No wonder these things are blooming so highly strung.
With their little heart rates going constantly.
Yeah, they did have one sort of cool anecdote about this little rat, a Nectomus rat, which demonstrated this confidence after it had already detected the snake, approached the snake very closely within like 15 centimeters and dodged 3 consecutive strikes. Yeah. So it seems like once the rodents know the snake's there, they may be able to kind of dodge. And so they kind of sort of suggest here that maybe, although the rodents are sort of poor at detecting the snakes, there might be a lot of selection on their evasive reflexes. Right. Because 50% isn't bad. Some of them are dodging these strikes.
Right. Well, it's not 100%. So you've got some scope for developing, if one's slightly better, slightly faster, you've got a selective opportunity there to enhance that trait little by little as you encounter snakes or not.
And so
it does.
Some people...
Sorry, before we move on from the mammal point, the other thing that they highlight in the discussion is it's also suggesting that there's probably some chemical, like smell crypsis going on from the snakes too. Because for birds, not so much, but for mammals, you kind of expect rodents and things to be able to smell what's around them pretty well. And the fact that that isn't necessarily cluing them into the snake, or maybe it is, and they can't do the distance judgment via smell very well, but they're on edge, they're ready, and maybe that's sort of giving them a pre-warning to be on heightened alert. And yeah, there might be something going on there. Maybe chemical crypsis, maybe it's actually what's helping the mammals dodge the strikes. Don't know.
Yeah, more to be done. So on the subject of the birds,
yes,
some people might say, hey, maybe they don't eat birds because birds are active in the day. Like we said earlier, these Bothrops vipers are generally active at night. They're ambushing at night. No, that you can kind of discount that idea because 3 of the 6 successful predations that this team actually witnessed occurred during the day, even though they're on mammals. So despite the fact they generally are considered to set up their ambush positions during the night, if something delicious walks past during the day, they're not just going to ignore it and be like, no, I only have the night.
Yep.
They're very generalist. Sorry, they're opportunistic predators, so they eat when they can. So if they were able to capture these birds, they probably still would give it a go if they were nearby to them. So it's probably not by virtue of the sort of day-night activity. Why do the birds spot them so well? They think it's probably their vision. Birds have really, really good vision. A lot of them can see many more parts of the spectrum than we can. A lot of them can actually see exactly into the UV spectrum. And a lot of snakes, as we know from the kind of quite controversial stuff that's coming out about snakes shining in UV. It's not really understood why they do this, but if they are sort of reflective of UV, then the birds might just be able to see that and be like, there's a snake there, it's shiny, you can see it. So it could be that is why, which is weird that snakes do that, given that's the case. But it might just be that there's not really much pressure on snakes to hide from birds, or at least for this species, because it's not really what they're eating. So I don't know whether there's like a difference in UV reflectiveness for snakes which do and don't eat birds. Don't know if anyone's looked into that.
I mean, I think that's kind of what this is all hinting at, right? Is there's going to be subtle interactions here between different, well, from the snake's perspective, dietary items that it might not be an availability thing or a preference thing. It might be I can't actually catch that very well thing, despite actually coming across it more frequently.
And I think they probably learn at a young age that they just can't catch birds. I would have thought, because
I mean, it does.
Animals can learn.
Yes, it does sort of maybe hint at that, right? Because it's going to be a lot of wasted opportunity, and you've got to sort of reset and settle back down again. So it's not that they can't catch birds; they are in the diet. It's just they're much lower. So they're rare. You might just be waiting for the absolute perfect opportunity.
So one last thing I wanted to touch on before we move on. There was one case where an opossum encountered a viper and it prompted the only defensive strike seen in the study. The snake kind of like went for the opossum to sort of say, hey, watch out, leave me alone. But it was unclear. It kind of seemed like the possum just kind of bumbled into the snake without really seeing it and wasn't really trying to attack it. It was just like careless, you know?
Just careless.
I thought it was quite funny. So that kind of does speak to the ambiguous, it's still ambiguous, the relationship between the possums and the snakes. Unclear what the intentions of either. Well, the snake was just like, get away from me, because I don't think it could eat the possum, was too big.
Yeah.
So yeah, great paper. Goes to show how much work it takes to get these data sets. You know, how many thousands hours of footage, a third of a year, you said, and they only recorded 6 observations of actual predation. So yeah, mammoth effort, really cool paper.
Oh, so much information there. It's so intriguing.
Yeah. Big finding about the detectability of the prey finding the snake.
In the wild, too. These are free-ranging snakes. These are free-ranging prey items. The whole prey items, that's so poor little guys out there being referred to as prey items. But in the context of this, that's what they were.
Yeah,
but it's all there. All the sort of chaos of a wild setup is there, baked into this study, and it's still coming out as this really clear difference in detectability. And that it's not one of these lab studies that are really, really interesting and insightful, but you always have that question about, but what about in the wild? And this pulling this off in the wild is just so cool.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, great stuff. And I don't have a good segue for this, so we're going to move on to our species of the bio week. We're talking about a new newt. So this is by Li, Shi, Liu, Luo, Wang, Liao, Wang, Gong, Wu, and Wang, 2026. Description of a new species of the Asian newt genus Tylototriton from central China. Published in Zoosystematics and Evolution. So yeah, we are
the first time we have talked about Tylototriton.
It's a classic one where it has one extra syllable than you want it to have. Tylotriton would be really cool. Tylototriton is hard to say. So yeah,
Tylototriton.
Yeah. So they're these like pretty cool newts, pretty jazzy. I have a sticker of one somewhere actually, which I've like I've done what I always do with stickers. I haven't stuck it on anything because it's too cool. I don't want to waste it, so I just keep it in a drawer. But yeah, they're these generally beautiful newts. They tend to be very dark coloured with like orange highlights. We'll talk about this new one. It's no exception. We're slap bang in the middle of China here in
Hubei,
Chongqing province, I believe it was.
Oh, I thought it was Hubei.
Was it Hubei? Oh,
yes,
my mistake.
next door.
Sorry, I was just looking at the map. It's because I had a conversation with Maya about Chongqing province. Confused me. Because there's a city called Chongqing, but it's not in Chongqing province, I think.
Oh, some Kansas City stuff.
I've been there. It's a crazy city. It's really cool. It's like in the mountains.
Super vertical,
very smoggy,
right?
But it's crazy vertical, man. Like, it's really awesome, actually. It's a super cool place.
This is Chongqing, not Kansas City. That's not vertical.
No. So yeah, this genus Tylototriton is this South and Southeast Asian newt genus, really widely distributed from like Sikkim and Darjeeling in north central India and Nepal, eastward and southeastward to central China, non-peninsular Myanmar and Thailand, and through Laos to the highlands of Vietnam, southern China, and Hainan Island. So they get around these newts, and they tend to have kind of their very own mountain or mountainous area, or at least high altitude area per species. That tends to be kind of how it works.
Yep.
And the taxonomy of this group's been a bit controversial. Some authors have suggested the genus should be split into 3 genera. Currently, though, it's accepted that it's probably just one, Tylototriton. And these authors were doing an amphibian survey in Wufeng County, Hubei province, you got it right, China, in May 2024. And they collected 8 specimens of this newt. And they did some analysis on it, some phylogenetic analysis with some small gene regions and some morphology stuff.
Mitochondrial, right?
I thought there was a cheeky little nuclear gene slapped in there as well.
This is what I was getting a little bit confused by, if I'm honest, because in this description, they're describing what 16S and ND2, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which are both mitochondrial.
Yes, right, you are.
But there's a previous paper that shares co-authors that are looking at this group sort of more widely that did use some nucleic genes, I believe, which essentially is the primer paper for this description. So while we're describing something here now, which is mitochondrial and morphological in terms of the description, there might be some nucleic stuff backing it up as well, but potentially not on as many specimens? Question mark?
Yes. So they're like phylogenetic tree that they have that has all the like estimates of ages. When you make those, you can incorporate other genes if other individual species have more bits. So there may be some of that in there. But the new species compared to the most similar species will only be sort of using the data from the small genes that they have done here. I mean, there could definitely be more. I think a lot of people would say that. But for me, the fact that this is like a geographically isolated species is the main reason I think it's like, okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, there's more behind the scenes is what I'm sort of getting at, despite it just being mitochondrial is kind of what I'm...
Yeah. I see, yeah. And so they did this phylogenetic analysis and measured their bodies. They reckon they diverged, this new species diverged from the 2 most closely related species about 2.5 million years ago. So not a crazy long time, but relatively long time. Sort of, what do you call it? Geologically, not that long, but to you and I,
it does seem like quite a long time to me. Yeah, that's
one of the ways they distinguish this species from closely related species in the same genus is by the fact that when they press their little hands against their bodies, their toes don't overlap. They don't overlap. They just meet. Sort of like if you were to make your hand into a small... Imagine just closing your fingers like that. Don't let them overlap or you'll be a different species. If they overlap, you're a different newt. I'd never seen that as a distinguishing feature before.
It's intriguing, isn't it?
It is intriguing, yeah.
They have adorable little hands too. They are precious. They've got a couple of
some
bitches.
of the best hands.
And they are just the cutest. Because they're dark. So we're talking about these dark, purpley brown newts, but all their fingers are bright orange.
I would go so far as to say these newts are black.
Yeah?
I think so. How do they describe them? Color in life. You keep talking about how they look, and I'll tell.
Yeah,
I'll get to the facts.
In life, the overall body color is black. I feel like there's a purpliness to them, though. There's something.
They do. Yeah, they do have a slight purplishness. They're very knobbly. They've got lots of little warts on them, or as the scientists call them, tubercles. And
orange fingers.
Orange fingers, and underneath of the hands is kind of like slightly orangey. Not the palm, just the 5 fingers or 4 fingers, depending which foot it is. And the underside of the tail also has like a fluorescent orange stripe, which is
that's got to be aposomatic, right? Or
they're flashing that off to scare startle predators. What's that called again?
Communication? Question mark?
Oh, with each other, yeah. I'm sure they fight. A lot of newts will fight. Maybe they don't fight. I don't know.
Well, you can usually guesstimate that if there's some sexual dimorphism going on, which there is, and the males are about 10 millimeters larger. So this species is ranging from 60 to like 90 millimeters. No, my bad. The females are larger. I read that backwards. Females are larger.
So we've got this jet black newt. So maybe they don't battle. So the jet black newt with the orange fingertips and the orange underside of the tail, really bumpy, warty characters, a nice little sort of vertebral bump down the back. And what have they called it? They've called it Tylototriton Wufeng because it was found in Wufeng County, Hubei province in China. They proposed the common name Wufeng Nobby Newt, which is jokes. And yeah, it's only known from this Wufeng County. The population inhabits mountain ponds at altitudes of approximately 1,000 meters, where there are sort of rocks in the ponds. During the day, they hide under the rocks, and in the night, they come out and swim about or sort of potter about on the land. Newt stuff, yeah, just eating little invertebrates, presumably. And they sort of live adjacent to a lot of farmland. The picture they have is like a pond in someone's sort of farm garden next to a field. It's just a very small pond, very shallow, with a few rocks. Behind it is some beautiful lush forest up on the higher hillside. And apparently that sort of typifies where you find these guys. They like these ponds, which were previously hidden by woods. Now they are much more exposed in many cases. The farming thing, not great for the newts because they're coming into contact with pesticides, habitat fragmentation and destruction. They suggest on the IUCN they could be vulnerable and that a reserve atop this mountainous area would do them just fine, please. You know, all they want to do is go under the rocks during the day and then swim and crawl about during the night. So if we could just leave them to
little
it.
Orange fingers.
A lovely little newt species. We strongly approve of Tylototriton wufengensis, the Wufeng Nobby Newt.
Welcome to science, little newt.
Yeah. Have you got any other business this week?
I do, and I'm going to segue from tiny newt hands to tiny skink hands. So I would like to put out a general call to the listenership and all the expertise out there, because we have failed to find any useful information on this observed behavior of Trachylepus elegans, or the elegant mabuya. This is a skink from Madagascar, and we have seen multiple individuals now sort of crawling around over sand and other sort of substrate, pausing, and they'll sort of, with their front legs, they will pat the ground in quite a sort of rhythmic fashion, move on a little bit more, and then pat the ground again. And as I say, we've seen multiple individuals do this now, and we cannot, well, I mean, you know, we can posit all 1,000 different theories of why they're doing it, but I'd really love to hear from folk with more skink knowledge or skink observations.
Why are they patting?
Why they are patting the ground. They seem to do it more frequently on sand than anything else.
That's really weird. Maybe they're like leaving a little bit of scent behind for the other skinks.
Could be a scent thing. Yeah. Could.
Or are they feeling there? Is there something under there?
It could be a vibration thing. Could be a like disturb the ground to make the bugs move so they can see them a bit better.
Is there some like subterranean animal they could be hunting for that makes the sound
maybe?
less
I mean, they're
dense
pretty. Well, I was going to say they're pretty little skinks, but they're reasonably sized.
Wait, are they not? Are they just? Could they just be arm waving to communicate with each other, and they happen to be patting the ground as part of it?
I can't say I've seen it happen with multiple skinks present.
Ah, okay.
It's only been lone skinks.
Okay, it's a real mystery.
Yeah.
This.
Well, I think if it was communicating with another skink, their arms would be a little bit higher up, but it is quite sort of
patty.
It's if anybody has seen any other skink species do that and insights, I'd love to hear about it. Because the other thing, you know, obviously have searched around online trying to, what on earth do you search for? Why do skinks pat the ground? You get absolutely nothing. And also pat probably isn't the term being used in scientific papers either. So we're a little bit, you know, we need the great height to help us out here.
And this was Madagascar. This happened. Yeah, nice. Okay, yeah. This wasn't something that happened in Scotland.
No, if I saw a skink patting the ground in Scotland, my concerns would not be about it patting the ground, but what it was and how I could help it.
It needs saving, yeah, for sure. Nice. Okay, well, there we go. Skink patting. Can you please tell us why, if you know? I just had one thing. We are now sponsoring a man on an ice hockey team, Ben. This is our first official sponsorship gig. we now have our livery attached to my friend Luke Jiggins and his team. Well, just him personally, not the whole team. The Blackburn Buccaneers ice hockey team. So if you're in the Blackburn area, go down there, watch the Blackburn Buccaneers. As far as I know, they're really quite good at ice hockey. Now, can't say I've ever actually seen ice hockey in real life. It's not really, it's sort of becoming a thing, but yeah, thanks Luke for the idea. And we're happy to be sponsoring you. Very cool. Right, that's it. I've not got anything else, mate. If you want to get in touch with us, herphighlights@gmail.com, ask us a question or correct
tell
us
us
on
about
something.
why
Or
skinks
just give
at
us
the ground.
most likely that. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can, patreon.com/herphighlights. We also have merchandise via our Redbubble shop, links in the show notes. I think all that remains to be said is thanks
for listening.